What is up, everyone? Welcome to another Fusion World video. Today I have a special guest. Yes, he's a special guest this time. It's Cody Vojtech. Say hello, Cody.
Yo, what's up?
We're going to be going over all the leaders, including set 2, and we're going to rank them. Sound good?
Hey, let's go. Yeah, can we just start with starter coup?
No.
Okay, we're not gonna start with the best leader of set 1.
We're not starting with it because it's going to make me really sad.
I think that's why we start with it, right? We want to get the depression out early, and then
Uh,
we can get to move on at that point.
all right, we can start with starter coup. Okay. So
Okay.
hold on. Before we do that, let's go over what the rankings are.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Z is reserved for the best deck in the format. What we think is going to be the best deck. S are just like the top tier that can, like, they can all beat each other. Like S and Z are like pretty interchangeable, but Z I think is going to be the most played and the best one out of the number that we're going to have there. A are really good decks. B are like fine playable decks. C is like a little bit below average, and then D is like decks you probably shouldn't be playing.
Like, even if you just like play them, just to play them. They're just, you shouldn't play. I'm kidding. You can always play those decks, but
Play what you like
D
to
is
play.
so weird. Yeah, D is so bad tier. Like, if you play this at an event, you've got some massive cojones.
Exactly. All right, you want to start with starter coup?
Yeah, let's just get him out of the way.
All right. I think starter coup is going to be very average.
Yeah, I have the same opinion. I think that he's probably better than Beerus, but I mean that's not like a hard totem pole to reach, and I don't think he's going to be doing anything nearly as powerful as the other two red leaders this set. Since U7 did get some very good cards, and then the new deck is just crazy. So yeah, I think that starter is a pretty. It's like fine. It's like a solid like B tier deck at this point. I wouldn't play it
Yeah.
over either of the red decks.
I think B is very solid for this. Like in the middle of B, I'd say just like plop it here for now, and we'll see how it shapes up. But I think this card, it's generically good leader, so I don't like. I think it's going to be fine, and if you want to play it, it's always going to be good. But just like the way the format I think is going to shape out, it just doesn't really have a place.
Yeah, I mean, if we ever get like more cards that incentivize playing a long game with red, he's got a unique ability to use like glimpse on defense for his leader, because he can just activate the leader effect, power up a battle card, and then glimpse himself for full effect.
Right.
So he has like cool things that only he can do that the other red leaders can't, provided they can't board a 30k. So he might come back later on if we get like cards that support like an intentionally like slower play style for red. But as of right now, he's just a B tier.
This will probably be the first one I'm going to be trying to force, though.
Yeah,
I'm going to try to make it work.
every set.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to go on to... We'll just start with all the starter decks first. So let's go with Vegeta now.
I think Vegeta is like minimum an A tier deck. Minimum.
Minimum.
It could potentially be an S tier deck. I'm not comfortable putting it above the other blue deck that I think is S tier. I do think this deck is very good. I think this deck can fight S tier, Z tier decks absolutely fine. It's definitely the most improved deck. I think just blue as a general got improvement. I think the single most improved deck from last set is Vegeta, because Vegeta went from like essentially you only wanted to play it to hunt down the Broly players at your locals to just something that you just didn't want to play. And now it's just something that's really good. It's like escalated into like a fantastic deck. So it can fight everything. I think it just has slightly worse matchup against the other S tier blue deck. And because of that, I can't put it in S.
What makes blue so much better now?
It just gained everything that it needed from last set. So one of Blue's biggest issues was they didn't have sticky battle cards that were relevant. So like, for example, if your best attacker was essentially 2-drop Trunks and 1-drop 15k skillless cards. So you just didn't have stuff that stuck around. So you're like beating people up with this 2-drop Trunks, it would go away. You'd hit people with the skillless card, it gets removed. And you just don't have anything that's like able to generate incremental value to like compensate for your low hand size. So everything was like, they were trying to force you to like play things that you knew would go away. And now this set, we actually have cards that will stick around and continue to gain value. With like 3-drop Vegito is a really good card, which comes in with tempo because it removes something. We got the secret rare. That card's absolutely fantastic. Sometimes you don't even attack with it twice. You just board it, swing once, and leave it inactive to hurt your opponent. Sometimes it never gets to attack, and you still win the game. But just fantastic cards all around. Like blue gained everything, and it gained an edge in longer games by being able to remove any card in the game, essentially.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think this deck's gonna be great. We're gonna put it in A for now. I what are the best and worst matchups for this deck? Do you feel like?
I think all the blue decks fight red pretty well, which is going to be very important. I think going
Right.
forward.
Yeah.
And I think that Vegeta specifically has the best green matchup of the blue decks, because of his his added power, his extra pushing pressure, especially now. Like he's just going to deal a damage to green every turn, like guaranteed, which is something he used to struggle with through Meteor. He won't have that problem now. Like if he gets a turn with the 4-drop in you, you're just taking a damage, or you're losing like your whole hand.
Yep.
Or you don't have any threats in your hand and you can't defend anyways. So it's he's just the best one at killing the green decks, and he's blue, so he's already going to be okay into red. He's not just like losing, and he'll be fine into yellow. I just think that he's like the best all around.
So is the reason you're not putting him in S is just because has the worst matchup against the other blue decks?
I think it's because he has a bad matchup into the blue decks, and specifically, he has a bad matchup than the one that I think is above him by a lot.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree with that. All right. Anything else you want to say about Vegeta, or we want to go to the next one?
Nah, I think we can go on to the next. Vegeta, he's just good. If you like him, play him. He's greatly improved.
Yes. All right. Next, we're gonna talk about Freezer. And
okay, I want to kind of lead this off with like a talk about yellow.
Okay. All right. Be my guest. Go ahead.
So yellow got some really good cards this set. That they were fantastic. The high rarity stuff was all good. The secret rare is really good. It gained a lot of very good cards. Yellow, unfortunately, I think came in very short in overall card quality. It did not gain a large number of very good cards. It didn't really get to adjust its playstyle a whole much, aside from just being tankier. Uh, Still kind of aggresses you. You can play the Ginyu package and still play a very aggressive yellow deck. I just don't see that being better than playing the red deck that we're going to have listed up later. But I just think the issue with yellow this set is oftentimes you'll have to use a stun effect and attack the card that you're stunning, because you just can't contest boards at all. You can stun everything, but every good deck right now plays like so much removal that you don't get to keep your stunners, and that board eventually just gets to come back up and swing at you, and you don't gain any value.
That was the biggest problem we had in our testing. Yellow just you can stun the cards, but if you're not stunning and attacking them at the same time, they can just untap at a later turn and kill you, and it just felt so bad.
I think yellow is sorely missing removal, and I hate saying this. I think the 4-drop shouldn't have stunned. I think it should have just KO'd like a 3-drop or less, like on play and on attack. I think it should have just straight up killed something. I think that would have been the biggest thing that yellow could have gotten, honestly. So I think you guys are going to hate this. I think there's one B tier yellow deck, and it's only because it does have one thing going for it, and that it just can't lose to green.
Yes, yeah.
And
yeah.
I think all the other yellow decks are just worse. I'm just going to come up and say it. Frieza, big winner of last set, big loser of this set. He's like a C tier deck.
I agree, and that makes me so sad. So, but just because the deck didn't really gain anything to play doesn't mean that it's going to be particularly bad. But in this instance, just because the way the meta I think is going to shape out, it just really, again, is not going to have a place.
I think it'll get like a top early on before like everybody gets their cards and people aren't like accustomed to playing against this. I wouldn't be shocked. This will probably get a top like an NC or something like that. It might do well, just like any other yellow decks will. I think they'll be really heavily played early on, because not everybody's gonna be doing the initial online testing and stuff and trying to make these decks work before we get the events. So I think we're gonna see tops with it in early set 2 format, but you will see that yellow just kind of gets phased out as green isn't like going to be more prevalent. And then we've got decks like blue, and Sinister Sickle just absolutely evaporates yellow.
Dude, you cast 2 Sinister Sickle against me, and that game was just over. It was over after the first one.
Yeah, it's so bad.
It feels awful.
and there's like nothing you can do about it. And the 6 drop doesn't do anything. It just gets absolute lightning, then you
Yeah, the
just
six
kind of
drop's
move
bad.
on.
The six drop's just,
It
I think it's a bad card.
Oh, it's a great card, but it'll be great when we get yellow green decks that want to play ramp. I'm just
Sure.
kidding. But so realistically, it's like I think the only yellow deck that'll go into B will come later. But yeah, I think Frieza is a C tier deck.
All right. The last of our starter decks, Broly.
Broly's great.
I think Broly's gonna be really good. We
Broly's fine. I think he's really good. He's the only green deck I think with a like reasonable matchup or contesting into red. Like he gets an extra 1 or 2 turns by just being Broly, and I think that's really important for green. You need those turns to stabilize because you're not really playing. And this is the thing that we got to talk about. Green isn't boarding the Broly 8. You're really not getting there against red. Like you just like don't have that as an
yeah,
option.
you don't even think the deck should play it anymore.
No, you kind of well, Broly might not have to because his 7 drop can kill other
Right.
opposing green decks bombs.
Yeah.
So considering that, you might not need to, but I do think that it's definitely a card you always consider. Because the only games I played against Red early on in set 2 testing, I just never boarded it. It literally could not hit the board. I would be dead before it would matter. And I was like, well, what if I just turn every card in my deck into one of the threats with combo power? And I built the deck really tanky, like with like 24, 26 10Ks, and then 4 beans and some Cell Juniors. I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
We could just live forever. And that was a good way to deal with red. And even green, or not green, blue Vegeta, it was a good way to fight that deck. So um, honestly, I think that Broly's still going to be very good. He's still going to be very oppressive, especially if you don't know how to play against him. He always has the ability to just like stop charging at like 7 energy and play every card in his deck if he's off the 8 drop, which is really good because it lets him hit his peak powers sooner. He's the only green deck besides Gohan that can remove the red 7 drop without playing an extra card. So that's a big important thing to note. And I think he's just fantastic. I think that he's still S tier. I think he's an S tier deck.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think he's on the low S tier though, just because I think the other decks are
Yeah,
slightly better. Like either like really high A or low S.
yeah.
Um,
I have him in like low S. I think that's perfectly fine for
but
him.
but you definitely don't go from being the best deck to just like lower than still a top deck. Um,
Yeah, people are still gonna do okay with this into everything. So if you're a Broly player and you really enjoyed this deck and you're like, wow, it's not the best deck, and you decide to scrap it, I mean, I wouldn't do that. It's still a good deck. It's still like fantastic.
yeah, I agree. I think it just has bad matchups against the decks I think are going to be very, very good.
Yeah, I think it's matchups against like red specifically. I think they'll be fine because like if you play the tankier variant with Bean and you're like running like 26 10Ks, even red has a hard time punching through like just being able to 1 card out of a lot of their swings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of people could just go, I'm going to swing for 30 on Broly because 30 is often enough to force a damage or 2 cards. Not the case if you're playing that many 10Ks, you can just get out of a lot. So I think once people like adjust their like how they play Broly and they start seeing all the really tanky versions like really good in this format with all these red decks, you'll appreciate it more and you'll do a lot better with it.
Okay, great. So we're done with the starter decks. Let's move on to Beerus.
Set 1, or are we going down the list?
We're gonna go set 1.
Okay, Beerus.
We'll start with Beerus.
He,
I hate this leader. This is like one of my least favorite to play, and I think it's gonna be very medium. Nothing special. I think it's going to, if I were to rank it, I'd say worse than Starter Coup, probably better than Frieza, just because red as a whole is going to be better.
I think because
yeah.
it's red, it has to be in B tier. Like I think it has to be because like red's just so strong. Like even Beerus is going to be doing a lot of things. So like he goes Kefla, Kefla plays Gohan. That's a neg 25 on the board plus 2 free 25k swings into the leader. That's really good. So he gets to just kill 3 drops, which lets him contest opposing like 17s really easy because he can go like leader effect, swings or swing Gohan, kill 17, still get 225ks into the leader. Like Beerus is bare minimum a B tier deck. I think just because red gained so much.
Yeah, and this is definitely the red deck that beats other red decks, which that's how it is right now. And I think it's going to stay pretty consistent through set 2. Especially since, yeah, I'm just going to put it at the I'm gonna put it slightly below starter coup just because I don't have the heart to switch them yet.
All right, I guess that's fair.
but but because the decks are going a lot lower, this is the best 5-drop Beerus deck, I think. And 5-drop Beerus is probably like, as we get better low cost cards, 5-drop Beerus is going to get better and scale well. And I think this is the best 5-drop Beerus deck. So
I don't. I don't think it
you
is.
don't
I don't think it is.
really. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. I think Beerus can't afford to be playing 5-drop Beerus.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Who do you think's the best 5-drop? Have we not talked about it yet?
Godku.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. See, I don't even want to play that in Godku. I just want to be super aggressive. I think that sounds like a trap.
Nope, it's you need it to break the mirror. I think we're gonna see it played mostly in that deck just to crack the mirror because you don't play 5-drop double striker because you already have it. So
Right.
those slots could be dedicated to like the tech mirror breaker. So
Okay. All right. I guess. We're gonna move on to Trunks. Trunks is one of my
uh
favorites.
I love this deck. I think that this is people are gonna think this is shocking. Like I think there's two S tier blue decks. Like I legitimately think this deck's very good, but I'm not gonna put it in S. I'm gonna say it's A. Uh,
I agree. I think this card is so close. I think it's very similar to Broly, in terms of power level, where I do sort of want to put this here. Um, and
I just can't. Like
yeah,
I think its matchup into green is just bad. Like it doesn't gain the additional pressure that Vegeta has, and it doesn't gain the like inevitability late game of the other blue deck that we're gonna talk about. I think my big issue with this deck is it's very it's very good against the red decks, and I think
right.
that's why that's like the big reason to like discuss its placement is because of how good like where the other blue decks are just kind of like they're even into red. Like this is the only one that's ahead, I think, into red. Unless Godku high rolls you, at which point he's just better no matter what you do, you lose. But if he doesn't high roll you, in that event, Trunks is very good against him,
Hmm.
specifically. But like if you play Trunks and you run against like the one guy who's playing Broly, man, that's an awful game for you. You do not want to fight that, especially not now with how much healing that deck has gained. So uh, I don't think that I think that Trunks is he has two really bad matchups above him because he doesn't want to fight Zamasu and he doesn't want to fight Broly. And
Yes.
I think that just because I think Zamasu will be like a commonly played deck after like one or two regionals, and Broly's still going to be popular because he's just great. I think he's just an A tier deck. He's very good against the other red decks that you're gonna see in here, but I think that his matchup into red isn't enough to solidify him in S tier. When he's got like a lot of other decks, including blue, basically that beats him. So uh, I think he's really close. I think if I had to say like a leader that's like most deserving but probably isn't there, it's Trunks.
How is the matchup into specifically Vegeta?
Well, you're basically the same deck, but instead of generating advantage, he just swings like an extra 30k up on you every turn.
Hmm.
So you just get beat up.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. All right. So yeah, it's just a blue deck that loses to the other blue decks. Okay. That's unfortunate. I do really like it, and I like what we got from it. And I think the SCR is played really well in this deck. Probably not as well in the other blue deck we're going to talk about, but I just love all the pieces we got for it. All right, moving on to green, we're gonna go with Gohan, and this is gonna make me really
I want
sad.
to hear what you I want to hear what you think first.
Um, so I just feel like it's probably going to be the worst screen deck. It doesn't. So Gohan is one of the best decks right now. Probably it's the second best green deck after Broly, but it does kind of beat up on Broly. And I still think it is going to beat up on Broly, but I don't see it beating any of the red decks. I think it's going to have a bad matchup against most of the blue decks as well, and then the yellow is just going to beat up on it like it always does. So, this pains me to say this, but I'm going to put it in D.
D.
Yeah,
Oh no, I can't put him there. I
I,
can't put him
I feel
there.
like he kind of deserves it, like a high end D.
No, he can't be that bad.
I don't know.
There's no shot. He's okay, he's the worst green deck for sure. But I think the worst green deck is still a C tier deck.
But I mean, but it's going to lose to the other decks we're going to put in C.
I don't think it does. I don't
Really?
think it outright loses to the other decks we're putting in C. Yeah, I think Gohan's fine
Well,
in
maybe we
terms
have
of like
different.
that.
Maybe we have different decks in C.
Yeah, we might,
We
because I
might.
definitely, I don't think it just loses to every, like, if you put other green decks close to it, it can beat the other green decks, right? So I mean, that's still something to be like consider is it can beat the other green decks. It's
Yeah, it has
not
a
just
good matchup
outright.
into Broly. Yes, I'm not
Yeah, and
sure
it
about
doesn't.
Cell. I don't know yet. Probably.
No, it probably is fine in
It's
itself
probably
because you can
fine.
like the leader like makes up for the one life they
I mean,
gain.
it's
So
canon, so I would assume it's good
yeah,
into it.
but he's definitely got a good matchup into like Trunks. Um, yeah, I think he's at least minimum a C tier deck.
All right, I
I
will put
can't.
it at
There's
the
no.
bottom of C right now, but I
I'm
I
okay with
really
bottom
want to
of.
put it on in D.
No, there's no way, dude. He's not. He's the worst green deck, but that doesn't make him the worst deck in the game.
All right, we'll put him in the bottom of C right now. I'll concede the point. I don't care enough to fight you on that one. We'll go.
Yes.
Now we're going to talk about, let's talk about Ginyu first. Cuz this is an easy
All
one.
right, D tier.
This is just
D
off the
tier.
this is just off the
I would
list.
make a tier for this. I would actually make it its own tier and just call it like the one poor guy at locals.
We're just going to call Ginyu tier. Oh, whoops. Like that.
All right, I'm down with it. Ginyu gets his own tier, and
Ginyu gets
it's
his own
the
tier
worst
cuz it's
tier.
so bad.
This deck is atrocious. It gained essentially nothing. I gained a card that would help it fight Broly if Broly was like gonna be the most played deck. That would be kind of neat, I guess. The removal from blue and red has significantly increased,
Yeah.
and your deck's just this deck just folds to removal, and unfortunately, like the best the best colors I would say are just full of it. So you
It's just
just are unplayable. It's
it
unplayable.
I actually think this is probably the most unplayable deck. I think all decks are playable and like you play what you want to play, but this is the closest thing we have to an unplayable deck. And that makes me
Like
kind of
in
sad because
order to
Ginyu's like a really cool character.
yeah, like in order for you to even play this deck and enjoy your time, you have to one high roll and your opponent has to two brick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
a D tier deck for sure.
All right. We will go on to um let's start with U7.
I'm just gonna immediately say S tier. Um,
Yeah, U7
it
seems
gained a
so
whole
cool.
lot.
It,
It gained a whole lot this set. It one drop 25k attackers are insane. Like that's just fantastic. He still can just
25k
now.
attacker.
Yeah, like one drop 25k attacker. That's
Yeah.
Frieza.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
and
thought
then
you
you
said
get
20, that's why. Okay.
no,
Yeah.
and then he has
Insane.
the TNs for the 20s, so you get to
Mhm.
run like a plethora of like good attacking one drops. And there's only going to be two 25k leaders in the format, and they're going to be played. One of them might be played a lot, but Broly won't be played as much, I don't think. At least not after the first one or two regionals. But having access to like really small, good attackers, and not having to give up cards to your hand to use your effect to produce your board, that's like good enough consideration to like consider this card as still or the leader as like an S tier leader because he just gained a whole bunch from this set. Starter who didn't like gain anything, which is unfortunate, but U7 gained a whole lot and the ability
Mhm.
to go much wider, much faster, or the ability now to just like play a more mid-rangey style where he's playing like he'll always have like a 3 drop plus a 1 drop on 4, and then on 5 he'll always like play like a 3 drop and a 2 drop or
Oh
two
yeah.
2 drops and a 1 drop. Like he's able to just really get value out of his leader effect now, which is before it was a problem and you had to like really get lucky on seeing TNs. Well, now he's got 8 good 1 drops, so he's like always going to be able to value swing into you with like double like 2 battle card affected leader swings.
And this is the one red deck I think actually plays pretty well into the blue decks, just because when they try to outtempo you, you can still just like cast multiple cards in a turn, like double or triple spelling to just like still retain board presence. So yeah, I think this deck's just gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very, very improved deck. Not the most improved deck. We got to remember Vegeta went from like a C
Yeah,
tier deck to an A tier deck. So
exactly. What do you think its biggest weaknesses?
It doesn't have as powerful a high roll as the other red deck.
And
That's it.
what exactly does that mean in terms of
So
where the meta is gonna
so
play?
Topku or Godku has to awaken essentially, which means he has to be able to do it himself without like thinking of his opponent won't attack him. Because a lot of decks just can win the game if they just don't attack him.
Right.
Because it may delay him like 1 or 2 turns. And if that happens, he's actually not that insane. Like his hand will be dwindled by then. You'll be able to actually push and kill him, or maybe defend one of his turns. U7 doesn't have any of these worries. He needs less cards to take his own life. People are going to be more inclined to hit him because the power he gains from flipping isn't as high as Godku's. And he's just really efficient. Like he's just a very efficient deck.
Mhm.
So I think that he's the deck that you would play if you wanted to probably feel safer. I think that's the best way to put it. Like you would feel safer playing U7 because you're not giving up cards from your hand to generate your effect. So you're
And you're
actually able
not
to
and you
just
don't
like
have to play on 3.
yeah,
So yeah,
and yeah, you
agreed.
get to stay out. So it's like you're not if you are worse than top two, it's not by like light years difference. Like it's a fine deck. It's a good deck. I would play this deck. Like if I was gonna play a regional, I would consider playing this deck.
If
Probably
I were
not.
to play in the regional, I think this would be my first choice. I don't
Yeah, it's
know,
just
my second choice. We haven't gotten to my first choice yet.
yeah, so I think aside from my first choice, this would be like the other deck that would be heavily in contention because
Yeah,
now it feels like the starter coup. It just
it
gains a lot of
does.
value and tempos your opponent out with really good cards. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think fantastic. If you liked this deck before, you're gonna really like it now.
completely agree. All right, we'll move on to the fan favorite Goku Black. I hate this deck. It's one of my least favorite decks to play, along with Beerus. But I think it
You know,
got.
I don't think that it's that bad to play. I like the deck.
I really just am not a fan. I never high roll with it, and whenever I play against it, the opponent always high rolls. So it's a lot of fun. I don't think it's going to be bad, and we got a lot of good pieces. But where if I well, I mean, I have to rank it because that's literally what we're doing. I would put it at like the top of C. It's like fine, and it got some good
See,
support.
I like always want to put this deck like in B tier because it's just like such it just randomly destroys you.
Yes,
And
but that
every
doesn't
single time that
happen so
happens,
often.
well, it happens a lot more often now.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So it's like they've gained a lot of cards that help them dig for Goku Black. So it's actually more likely that the high roll occurs, and they have a 2-drop that you can't like remove if they just play it and let it sit there.
Right.
So like for me, like the things that the deck does well, it still is going to do well. It just I don't think it has a good matchup into red, particularly now.
Which is weird
Um,
because that's normally its best matchup. Well, it
well,
was in
the
set
other the
one.
other the other decks gained basically what it did.
Right.
Except they didn't have to pay 6 for it or high
Exactly.
roll or pay 5. So um, I think my issue is like it's like yeah, it's like a high C tier deck. That if you get the high roll off, yeah, you're like an S tier deck. But if you don't, it's you're very quickly back down to C tier. It's either like bottom of B, like high C, something like that.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it in high C. I don't like the deck. Um, we're gonna talk about Cooler now, and this one's gonna make me really sad. Cooler was one of my favorite leaders in set one, and I just always wanted to make it work. It just always felt like a worse Frieza. And it just got nothing. Like it, I think this is probably one of the biggest losers out of all of the leaders for set two's release.
I think it is the biggest loser. It literally didn't gain a card.
Right. Well,
Like
it gained a card. It gained a card. You got that blocker cooler.
that blocker cooler isn't restricted to being the cooler leader.
Oh, is it? I thought it was. Is it really not?
No, no.
Oh yeah, this got nothing. Okay.
Yeah, he's just D tier.
Yeah,
Like
it's
he
better
gained
than Ginyu though.
literally 0 cards. Yeah, he's better than Ginyu, but he gained 0 cards. So you like play the new SRs if you want, but I guess it's like way worse than just playing Raccoon Ginyu and cooler because you want to be able to flip.
Yeah.
Um, and you want to be able to have like aggressive cards when you flip. So I think cooler is like I wouldn't be shocked. I hope I please somebody take this deck to a regional and prove me wrong. I want nothing more than cooler to be like a good deck, but I honestly think that it is unfortunately just the biggest loser of the set, and even with it being the biggest loser of the set, it's still better than Ginyu.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Ginyu also didn't get anything. Ginyu was already the worst deck, but it did get like a Mecha Frieza, right, and a King Cold. It's not like specifically for this deck, but it fits in the deck really well.
No, they're the bodies are too small, and you like the King Colt doesn't really make any sense with Cooler.
Yeah, I honestly forgot what they did. I just remembered that they were printed.
Well, the King Colt is when it blocks, it restands and can block again,
Oh, sure. Okay.
which is more of a Frieza card.
Right.
And the Mecha is on KO. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add a Frieza clan to your hand.
Okay, yeah, that's not very good. All right,
Yeah,
D.
D.
And next, we'll go to, oh yeah, the last set one leader, we have androids.
B tier.
Yeah, I think this deck got a lot.
Yeah, it gained a lot. It's out of the green decks, it's the biggest winner from set one. It
I'd say
gained a
so.
whole lot. It got a really powerful card that allows it to completely adjust how it plays. Like being able to like extend into more cards to fight back boards is just really critical now. And androids are going to be the absolute best at that for the green decks. So like you can always go 4-drop ramp, still apply pressure to the opponent's board state, and yeah, the deck just gained a bunch of consistency and it gained a bunch of power. I think the deck's good. It's very good. If you're a fan of the droids, you can definitely play droids. You could take them to a regional, probably do all right. They just have a being a 20k leader means they are going to have a hard time into red. But the perk of that is you'll be able to at least try to contest their boards, which Gohan can't even really do.
Yeah, true. I really like this deck. Gonna be one of the first ones I'm gonna try out. Looks really fun. I really like the 4-drop that you just talked about. Looks really fun to play. And yeah, it's the best pure ramp deck, I think, right now.
Yeah, I can agree with you. If you're solely just ramping to do stuff, you could play Cell in this deck and it's fine.
Yeah.
Like you can literally just play this deck however you want, and it's probably going to be perfectly fine.
All right, now we're gonna get into set two cards. We'll start with
We'll start with the worst that you think and work our way up.
we'll start with the worst that I think.
Hmm.
See, the worst that I think is definitely different than the worst that you think.
Who do you think's the worst?
I mean, no, it's probably just a tie between Vegeta and Cell. Vegeta probably is just the worst one, just because it's
I
yellow.
think I think he's the worst. I
That
honestly, and I
makes me
think this is
so
gonna
sad. I
offend.
really want this card to be good.
No, I think the leader is actually like a Z tier leader, but not right now.
Yeah, not now.
um, we've already got to experience how powerful just having free access to extra cards is.
Hmm.
Some of them are just heinous, and gaining a bunch of power is really good. Like having imagine if you could just say, "I have a gigantic meteor every turn for free." That's what this deck does,
Yeah,
um, and that's really cool. The problem is yellow just can't win boards, and because it can't win boards, the extra defense that you get from playing Vegeta doesn't do anything. You're like a cockroach that doesn't actually win the game. So you just live like a little bit longer than Frieza would, producing the same amount of pressure that Frieza would, and then you die.
yeah, that was the biggest issue I had with it. Like I was able to protect
So
myself really well, but then I just couldn't do anything on my turn.
yeah, so it's really rough for old yellow Vegeta. I think he's like the best yellow deck. I definitely think he's better than the other yellow decks.
I agree.
Um, but I think that being the brightest pea in a tool shed.
Sure.
It's a terrible analogy. If you're the brightest pea in a bag of like dead peas, it doesn't really matter, right?
Okay, I love it.
So he's like maybe high C. I
Yeah,
don't even
I
think
think
he's
that's
D
the
tier.
highest I can put it.
Also, he gets just manhandled by blue. Well,
Yeah, yeah, it's really hard to beat just one sickle when you're playing this deck. Sickle's going to be a huge winner, I think. I think that card's just going to be amazing.
yeah, I think Sickle's like a top 5 card
Yeah, it's pretty
now.
crazy. Um, did you talk about its best matchup yet?
Oh, a Vegeta?
Yeah,
Green.
green. Yeah,
The
okay,
entirety of the color green, yeah.
agreed. Yeah, if green's gonna be big, like if Broly and Cell are gonna be a huge part of the meta, and we're just like wrong about Gohan, then just Vegeta's gonna be so good.
Oh yeah, Vegeta just manhandles green decks.
Mhm.
It's Broly and Gohan are the only ones that can even like attempt to fight you, and you kind of just beat them in the snot. So I don't think it matters.
But yeah, we're just gonna keep it at C. I'll put it above Goku Black.
It's probably better than Goku Black.
Well, let's do this.
What? Hold on, wait a minute.
All right, we're gonna
I don't
move
agree.
on.
I don't agree with these.
We're gonna move on to Cell.
I think he's B tier. I think he's a B tier deck.
See, I like this card. I really like this deck. It's just when I've tried it, it just really hasn't done as much as I thought it was going to. I mean, that could just be a skill issue though. But I
I'm
think I
going with
think it
that.
is I think it is a B tier deck. I want it to be an A tier deck, but I just don't think it's gonna get there.
No, I think it's very solidly a B tier deck. I think the only reason you have to consider with a format that it's coming into, it's a 20k green leader with no early game.
Its early game is
Like
stay alive.
yeah, it's the same as Gohan.
Right.
It's literally you're the payoff for this is if you do reach your late game against any deck, you're suddenly extremely hard to kill.
Mhm.
If you actually reach the late game with Cell, you start very quickly winning the game. So unlike Gohan, who really isn't stabilizing, he has to kill you. He's not going to start like stopping the bleeding. Cell will like put a cork in it and then just start recovering the game as he goes. So Gohan's still playing 8-drop Broly. Cell's going to play Cell, which is going to threaten 3 of your battle cards and gain a life.
Mhm.
Uh, and then if he's got Celery now, he's just going to do it at next turn and next. He's just going to heal every turn, which makes him get further and further out of reach. So I think his problem is he's bad in the red.
Yeah,
But
I
in the
think
event,
Cell and
go
Vegeta have
ahead.
like the same problem. They're both good leaders against the green decks. Like Cell is the best green deck against the other green decks, just because Cell Games Arena is just gonna kill any green deck. Like you just play that on 4, the other green decks probably can't win. But yeah, that's the same problem Vegeta has. Vegeta just beats up on the green decks, and I don't think the green decks are going to be all that good anymore.
Yeah, the thing I do have to give him credit though is like once his late game is reached, he can fight every deck. Like if
That
he
yeah,
gets
right.
there,
He just
yeah,
has to
like
get there though. Like, and that's not
yep,
going to happen against U7. It's not going to happen
not
against Topu.
consistently. Yeah, not
Probably not
consistently.
even against like Vegeta.
You probably could do it against Vegeta. You probably could do it against Vegeta because he's not super wide, but
No,
he's
he's
just
not
gonna
wide,
start
but he's going
jamming
to just
like
start smacking you every turn. And then once you get to
yeah, but
Cell, like you're dead
Cell's
the
good at
turn
that
after.
because he no because he heals.
Oh, Cell heals. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Cell
Yeah,
heals. That's what I'm
you're
trying to say.
right.
Like Cell's good into Vegeta because
You're
it does
right.
like 1 damage a
Yeah,
turn.
you're right.
Yeah, so he's fine. I like Cell. That's like why Cell's B tier is because he can likely reach the late game versus Blue. I think he just loses the late game against the other Blue deck.
Yeah.
I honestly think like he will struggle
Well,
against
we can talk about that right now.
yeah.
Um, Zamasu. I think this deck is going to be a problem, and in like the best possible way. I really like it. I think it's going to be one of my favorite decks to play. It's the first pure control deck that we're going to have, and I just want to put it in S tier immediately right now. What are you thinking?
Z tier baby? No, it's not Z tier. It's a S tier deck. Oh crap. Okay, so uh, this is a deck I think a lot of people underestimated. I really
I
think this
did.
deck was hated, and you've seen the light. You've been shown the way.
Well, yeah, because you beat
Um,
me in the face with it.
this deck is really good. Um, it has a unique flow when you reach the late game where your opponent has to realize they have to like win in 1 turn. Because if
hmm
they can't just kill you, dealing 1 damage to you is not a strategy. They can't ever just do that because it lets you like cycle a new card. It actually helps you if they
hmm
hit you for 1. So like your opponent is always under the impression they have to like win the game immediately. So if they don't and you start stabilizing, the game just quickly becomes essentially unwinnable for your opponent. You start amassing the ability to just generate all the advantage you want. You're playing bomb after bomb after bomb, and your bombs come with tempo. Like everything is so strong once you've reached your peak of power. And being blue, you have the tools required to live to get there against these red decks. Gatlic Gun essentially stops 2 attacks. Being a 25k leader means your like cantrip Trunks is now block damage
Hmm.
against even Topku. He doesn't block as much damage against U7 because U7 still swings, his 25s for 30s and whatnot, but that's fine. But Topku, he swings 25 a lot, which is pretty easy for Zamasu to handle.
Yeah, the best way to beat Zamasu is to either go wide or double strikers. And the issue with going wide is when you go wide, your battle cards are like lower power level than 25. So it's being a 25 leader is just kind of insane on this card.
Well, he also punishes going wide because then you've given him targets to just bot deck or remove or
Right.
attack. And being a 25k leader and attacking battle cards, well, you've seen that it's really effective.
It's
You
like
know,
impossible to defend against. Yeah.
yeah, you have to start like really giving up hand, and you're not even being threatened to be given cards. So like when you play this deck and you play it hard control and you play it like a blue good stuff deck, it gets really, really, really hard to beat. Gatlic Gun is an insane card, and him having access to it, well, it's crazy because it's like you go to 40k and draw a card. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is. It is actually insane.
Like the fact that you get to just block so much damage, insane deck. I think this is hands down the best blue deck.
I agree.
Um,
And in my like deck building process for like all the other decks, I want to start moving away from double strikers because we have such powerful low cost cards. The issue
mhm.
is you need double strikers to kill Zamasu.
Yeah, if you don't have a double striker or you don't have like an obscenely wide board, at which point like the Zamasu player has failed horribly
Right.
to keep you trimmed. But if you don't have like a really wide board, you have to have a big double striker, and then they can always just gauge their like shield value in their hand with their energy to what you can possibly combo to and determine whether or not they can take that 1 damage or just combo out of your attempted 1 damage into them. So I
Yeah.
mean, Zamasu is so heavily favored on defense because of cards like Black Kamehameha, Gatlic Gun, just so many new 10Ks, and the fact that his hand actually isn't going to be small, thanks to stuff like Peel Off Looping, Go Tanks. Piccolo's a really good card in this deck now too. That's another thing nobody talked about. That 3-drop Piccolo really good in this deck
Yeah.
because you're picking up like a Black Kamehameha, and if you're picking up Black Kamehameha, you're defending like anything essentially, while also
Gallic
fixing your
gun too.
draws.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can pick up Gatlic Gun. You can pick up Absolute Lightning to remove big threats. You can pick up Sickle to just remove their board. Deck just gained so much. I think it's just great.
So the biggest problem with this deck, green, right?
Sometimes.
So does this just have no weaknesses then?
No, it definitely can get killed by Topku, otherwise it would be Z tier.
Right.
Um, so it's like the thing when you're playing Zamasu is it's your early game and how much life you have by the time they're going to 3 life. So it's like if you're at 8 when they're going to 3 life, you're probably gonna win that game pretty handily. If you're at like 5 with them going into 3 life, you're probably gonna be about even.
Hmm.
If you're awoke when they're going into 3 life, you're probably dead.
You're probably just dead. Yeah. That's true.
So you really have to defend
Blue
like
plays really well
early.
against red though. So
Yeah, yeah, like Sinister Sickle answers Kefla for
yeah.
1 less energy. And that's really important. The fact that like you can answer everything and your answers aren't just putting stuff to hand anymore. You're actually just flat out removing stuff. Zamasu is just a very powerful deck. I think people are really still not going to like accept it until they've like seen people play this deck well. And
Hmm.
I think people just aren't going to play this deck well for a while. And I think that's going to be what will really let people not see it. But people who have seen it, they know how good this deck
It's
is.
so good. I think this is probably eventually going to be the most complained about deck.
Probably.
I can see that. People don't like control decks, and they're just going to complain about this because they're going to think that they can't beat it. Because honestly, when they get to 7 or 8 energy, you can't beat it.
No, it's really hard at that
It's
point.
really hard. All right, we'll talk about the last one, and yes, it is going in Z tier. Top coup. This deck is just insane.
Bro, it's like playing Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like a
It does
Yu-Gi-Oh deck.
feel, it
That
feels
too.
like you're playing a different game.
Yeah. Um, this is gonna be, I think, the best deck.
It's going to be the
If
most
this deck
played
gets
deck.
power crept, yeah. If this deck gets power crept, sell out, like just quit. Like
And
this
is,
deck's power crept next set. This deck's crazy.
I think this is the most ban worthy card, ban worthy leader. If they like forget about Tournament of Power and they print something insane, like this card is just, this card is just so good.
I mean, as
I
long as we have
don't,
Kefla, it's this card's gonna be powerful.
yeah. Kefla, all your amazing 3-drops. You have like great 2-drops too. Like this deck kind of just does everything.
Yeah, and
And now you're
people.
saying it's the best 5 Beerus deck too. So it actually just does everything.
Yeah, so like the only reason to play that, normally you don't have to charge to 5, so you typically wouldn't unless you were in the mirror. You could charge to 5 then play Beerus, because normally your combo only requires 3 energy. So
Mm-hmm.
you could technically stop charging at 3 if you really wanted to, but I always go to 4. Um, 5 gives you two things. It gives you the double Kefla turn, which you rarely ever need to do, or it gives you Beerus access. Those are like the quintessential things. Um, Glimpse turned out to be an insane card. I tried to tell
Yeah.
people that card was really good, but you didn't listen to me.
I did not. I didn't see it. I definitely see it now. It's actually insane. Is it 50, it's
Yeah, like
55 on your double striker on for 3
yeah.
mana?
So 3 mana, you pay 1, use leader effect, play Ribrianne, swing with Ribrianne, pay 2, glimpse or pick up a 10k, and then put the 10k on her, and that's 55.
It's just
So you
insane.
3 mana 55 double is insane. We haven't even talked about like you putting more cards into it.
Yeah.
So essentially, if you ever get your opponent to 2 life with this deck, they just die. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty insane.
Talk about
Um,
ways to kill Zamasu. That's one right there.
yeah, like this deck actually runs double strikers, like so it can kill Zamasu efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And Zamasu's like a really good deck. Zamasu can still fight this deck. Don't think that like, oh, I just lose because I'm Zamasu. Zamasu's perfectly fine in this
Yeah.
matchup. All the S tier decks are. I do think U7 is probably the worst. I think he's not favored just because they're both like kind of forced to be aggressive, and Topku like just gets to play 7 energy for 1. So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I don't think he's better than Topku in the mirror, but yeah, I think that the Topku's gonna be really good. Zamasu's gonna be really good, and Zamasu's actually my most excited deck
Me
next
too.
set. I'm most excited for Zamasu.
Me too. Maybe Zamasu or Topku or and U7. I kind of just want to play everything.
Yeah, dude, play the game, play
Yeah,
everything.
I'm just gonna play everything. I'm even gonna play all the C tier decks too, because why not? Um, what's Topku's worst matchup?
Trunks,
There we go.
it's
Yep.
Trunks. Yeah, it's so I think, and it's not even like super unfavored. Like it's Trunks is definitely favored, but it's not like really bad. The fact that Trunks can just like remove your board at will um, is insane. It's really hard to fight that. Even though you are playing cards, you're never gonna end your like he's never gonna end his turn to you with stuff on your board. So you're gonna have to like keep replaying dudes, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually, if you're not killing his dudes, he just gets to swing a bunch of dudes into you and you die. So Trunks is just going to be really good because he gets to remove the board for free, and the numbers aren't big enough to force Trunks to be like sweating. And Trunks always has the ability to play like really advantage. He can go like play a peel off, pick up a peel off, use leader effect to pick up the peel off he just played, play it again, pick up Trunks, play Trunks, draw a card. So like he gets the ability to still turn cantrips into like draw twos or whatever, or the like, peel offs into to dig for a lot of combo power, so he can like be really defensive. So he just has a natural game plan that works against top two, and pretty much that solidified Trunks' spot in A tiers because he's just really good at beating the best deck.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Do you have any closing thoughts about how you think the meta is going to shape out?
I mean, kind of what you see here.
Yeah.
I
What you
mean,
see is
really,
what you
really, I
get.
mean, that basically, I think we're going to see a lot of Topku. We're going to see, like I said, I think we'll see yellow really early in the format, and I think people will kind of see that just it really is just weak right now, and they'll kind of move away from it. Like yellow might be fine if you play super aggro, but it's not going to win consistently. And if you're going to play super aggro, why aren't you playing Topku or U7? So that's really my argument there. Is like if you're wanting to play yellow, you just play Vegeta because he can do the same thing as the other two yellow decks, except he's just tankier.
Exactly.
So it's like you strictly have a better, like, multiple better options in your color. So it's like, yeah, just play red. Like, if you're trying to play aggro, you just play red. If you're trying to play control though, we got Zamasu now. So all my control boys get hype because blue black baby.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I that's going to be the most fun deck to play early because no one's going to see it coming, and then late everyone's just going to complain about it. So that'll be fun too.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cody, for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.